Incomes. The average net household income in Paris was €36,085 for 2011. It ranked from €22,095 in the 19th arrondissement to €82,449 in the 7th arrondissement. The median taxable income for 2011 was around €25,000 in Paris and €22,200 for Île-de-France. Generally speaking, incomes are higher in the western part of the city and in the western suburbs than in the northern and eastern parts of the urban area. While Paris has some of the richest neighborhoods in France, it also has some of the poorest, mostly on the eastern side of the city. In 2012, 14% of households in the city earned less than €977 per month, the official poverty line. 25% of residents in the 19th arrondissement lived below the poverty line, 24% in the 18th, 22% in the 20th and 18% in the 10th. In the city's wealthiest neighborhood, the 7th arrondissement, 7% lived below the poverty line, 8% in the 6th arrondissement, and 9% in the 16th arrondissement. Climate. Paris has a typical Western European oceanic climate, which is affected by the North Atlantic current. The overall climate throughout the year is mild and moderately wet. Summer days are usually warm and pleasant with average temperatures between 15 and 25 degrees Celsius, and a fair amount of sunshine. Each year, however, there are a few days when the temperature rises above 32 degrees Celsius. Longer periods of more intense heat sometimes occur, such as the heat wave of 2003 when temperatures exceeded 30 degrees Celsius for weeks, reached 40 degrees Celsius on some days and really cooled down at night. Spring and autumn have, on average, mild days and fresh nights but are changing and unstable. Surprisingly warm or cool weather occurs frequently in both seasons. In winter, sunshine is scarce, days are cool, and nights are cold but generally above freezing with low temperatures around 3 degrees Celsius. Light night frosts are however quite common, but the temperature seldom dips below 5 degrees Celsius. Snow falls every year, but rarely stays on the ground. The city sometimes sees light snow or flurries with or without accumulation. Paris has an average annual precipitation of 641 millimeters, and experiences light rainfall distributed evenly throughout the year. However, the city is known for intermittent, abrupt, heavy showers. The highest recorded temperature was 42.6 degrees Celsius on the 25th of July, 2019, and the lowest was 23.9 degrees Celsius on the 10th of December, 1879. Religion. At the beginning of the 20th century, Paris was the largest Catholic city in the world. French census data does not contain information about religious affiliation. According to a 2011 survey by the Institut Français d'Opinion Publique, a French public opinion research organization, 61% of residents of the Paris region identified themselves as Roman Catholic. In the same survey, 7% of residents identified themselves as Muslims, 4% as Protestants, 2% as Jewish and 25% as without religion. According to the INSEE, between 4 and 5 million French residents were born or had at least one parent born in a predominantly Muslim country, particularly Algeria, Morocco and Tunisia. An IFOP survey in 2008 reported that, of immigrants from these predominantly Muslim countries, 25% went to the mosque regularly, 41% practiced the religion, and 34% were believers but did not practice the religion. In 2012 and 2013, it was estimated that there were almost 500,000 Muslims in the city of Paris, 1.5 million Muslims in the Île-de-France region and 4 to 5 million Muslims in France. The Jewish population of the Paris region was estimated in 2014 to be 282,000, the largest concentration of Jews in the world outside of Israel and the United States. Métro, rail and tramway. Since the inauguration of its first line in 1900, Paris's metro network has grown to become the city's most widely used local transport system. Today it carries about 5.23 million passengers daily through 16 lines, 308 stations and 226.9 kilometers of rails. Superimposed on this is a regional express network, the RER, whose 5 lines, 257 stops and 587 kilometers of rails connect Paris to more distant parts of the urban area. Over €26.5 billion will be invested over the next 15 years to extend the Métro network into the suburbs, with notably the Grand Paris Express project. In addition, the Paris region is served by a light rail network of 9 lines. The tramway, Line T1 runs from Asnières-Gennevilliers to Noisy-le-Sec. Line T2 runs from Pont des Bezins to Port des Vessouilles. Line T3 runs from Pont du Garigliano to Port des Vincennes. Line T3B runs from Port des Vincennes to Port d'Asnières. Line T5 runs from Saint-Denis to Gages-Saucelles. Line T6 runs from Châtillon to Viroflay. Line T7 runs from Villejuif to Athos. Mons. Line T8 runs from Saint-Denis to Épinay-sur-Seine and Villetaneuse, all of which are operated by the RATP Group, and Line T4 runs from Bondy-Rare to Aulnay-sous-Bois, which is operated by the state rail carrier SNCF. 5 new light rail lines are currently in various stages of development. Railways. A central hub of the national rail network, Paris's 6 major railway stations and a minor one are connected to 3 networks, the TGV serving 4 high-speed rail lines, the normal speed Corail trains, and the suburban rails. Employment. According to 2015 INSEE figures, 68.3% of employees in the city of Paris work in commerce, transportation, and services, 24.5% in public administration, health and social services, 4% in industry, and 0.1% in agriculture. The majority of Paris's salaried employees fill 370,000 businesses services jobs, concentrated in the northwestern 8th, 16th and 17th arrondissements. Paris's financial service companies are concentrated in the central western 8th and 9th arrondissement banking and insurance district. Paris's department store district in the 1st, 6th, 8th and 9th arrondissements employ 10% of mostly female Paris workers, with 100,000 of these registered in the retail trade. 14% of Parisians work in hotels and restaurants and other services to individuals. 19% of Paris employees work for the state in either administration or education. The majority of Paris's healthcare and social workers work at the hospitals and social housing concentrated in the peripheral 13th, 14th, 18th, 19th and 20th arrondissements. Outside Paris, the Western Hauts-de-Seine department La Défense district specializing in finance, insurance and scientific research district, employs 144,600, and the northeastern Saint-Denis audiovisual sector has 200 media firms and 10 major film studios. Paris's manufacturing is mostly focused in its suburbs, and the city itself has only around 75,000 manufacturing workers, most of which are in the textile, clothing, leather goods, and shoe trades. Paris region manufacturing specializes in transportation, mainly automobiles, aircraft and trains, but this is in a sharp decline. Paris proper manufacturing jobs dropped by 64% between 1990 and 2010, and the Paris region lost 48% during the same period. Most of this is due to companies relocating outside the Paris region. The Paris region's 800 aerospace companies employed 100,000. 400 automobile industry companies employ another 100,000 workers. Many of these are centered in the Yvelines department around the Renault and South Citroën plants. But the industry as a whole suffered a major loss with the 2014 closing of a major Aulnay-sous-Bois Citroën assembly plant. The southern Essonne department specializes in science and technology, and the southeastern Val-de-Marne, with its wholesale Rungus food market, specializes in food processing and beverages. The Paris region's manufacturing decline is quickly being replaced by eco-industries. These employ about 100,000 workers. In 2011, while only 56,927 construction workers worked in Paris itself, its metropolitan area employed 246,639, in an activity centered largely on the Saint-Denis and Hauts-de-Seine departments and the new business park centers appearing there. Economy. The economy of the city of Paris is based largely on services and commerce. Of the 390,480 enterprises in the city, 80.6% are engaged in commerce, transportation, and diverse services, 6.5% in construction, and just 3% in industry. The story is similar in the Paris region. 76.7% of enterprises are engaged in commerce and services, and 3.4% in industry. At the 2012 census, 59.5% of jobs in the Paris region were in market services, 26.9% in non-market services, 8% in manufacturing and utilities, 5.2% in construction, and 0.2% in agriculture. The Paris region had 5.4 million salaried employees in 2010, of whom 2.2 million were concentrated in 39 pôles d'emploi or business districts. The largest of these, in terms of number of employees, is known in French as the QCA, or Quartier Central des Affaires. It is in the western part of the city of Paris, in the 2nd, 8th, 9th, 16th, and 18th arrondissements. In 2010, it was the workplace of 500,000 salaried employees, about 30% of the salaried employees in Paris and 10% of those in the Île-de-France. The largest sectors of activity in the central business district were finance and insurance and business services. The district also includes a large concentration of department stores, shopping areas, hotels and restaurants, as well as government offices and ministries. The second largest business district in terms of employment is La Défense, just west of the city, where many companies installed their offices in the 1990s. In 2010, it was the workplace of 144,600 employees, of whom 38% worked in finance and insurance, 16% in business support services. Two other important districts, Neuilly-sur-Seine and Levallois-Perret, are extensions of the Paris business district and of La Défense. Another district, including Boulogne-Billancourt, Issy-les-Moulineaux and the southern part of the 15th arrondissement, is a center of activity for the media and information technology. The top French companies listed in the Fortune Global 500 for 2021 all have their headquarters in the Paris region, 6 in the central business district of the city of Paris, and 4 close to the city in the Hauts-de-Seine department, 3 in La Défense and 1 in Boulogne-Billancourt. Some companies, like Société Générale, have offices in both Paris and La Défense. The Paris region is France's leading region for economic activity, with a GDP of €681 billion and €56,000 per capita. In 2011, its GDP ranked second among the regions of Europe and its per capita GDP was the 4th highest in Europe. While the Paris region's population accounted for 18.8% of metropolitan France in 2011, the Paris region's GDP accounted for 30% of metropolitan France's GDP. The Paris region economy has gradually shifted from industry to high-value-added service industries and high-tech manufacturing. The Paris region's most intense economic activity through the central Hauts-de-Seine department and suburban La Défense business district places Paris's economic center to the west of the city, in a triangle between the Épère-Gagnaire, La Défense and the Val de Seine. While the Paris economy is dominated by services, and employment in manufacturing sector has declined sharply, the region remains an important manufacturing center, particularly for aeronautics, automobiles, and eco-industries. In the 2017 Worldwide Cost of Living Survey by the Economist Intelligence Unit, based on a survey made in September 2016, Paris ranked as the 7th most expensive city in the world, and the 2nd most expensive in Europe, after Zurich. In 2018, Paris was the most expensive city in the world with Singapore and Hong Kong. Station F is a business incubator for startups, located in 13th arrondissement of Paris. Noted as the world's largest startup facility. History. Roman Republic 52 to 27 BC, Roman Empire 27 BC AD 395, Western Roman Empire 395 to 476, Kingdom of Soissons 476 to 486, Francia 486 to 843, West Francia 843 to 987, Kingdom of France 987 to 1792, French First Republic 1792 to 1804, First French Empire 1804 to 1814 Kingdom of France 1814 to 1815 First French Empire 1815 Kingdom of France 1815 to 18 the 30th of July Monarchy 1830 to 1848 French Second Republic 1848 to 1852 Second French Empire 1852 to 1870 French Third Republic 1870 to 1940 Military administration in France 1940 to 1944 Part of German-occupied Europe from 1940 to 1944 Provisional Government of the French Republic 1944 to 1946 French Fourth Republic 1946 to 1958 French Fifth Republic 1958 Present. Origins. The Parisii, a sub-tribe of the Celtic Senones, inhabited the Paris area from around the middle of the 3rd century BC. One of the area's major north-south trade routes crossed the Seine on the Île de la Cité. This meeting place of land and water trade routes gradually became an important trading center. The Parisii traded with many river towns and minted their own coins for that purpose. The Romans conquered the Paris basin in 52 BC and began their settlement on Paris's left bank. The Roman town was originally called Lutetia. It became a prosperous city with a forum, baths, temples, theaters, and an amphitheater. By the end of the Western Roman Empire, the town was known as Parisius, a Latin name that would later become Paris in French. Christianity was introduced in the middle of the 3rd century AD by Saint Denis, the first bishop of Paris, according to legend, when he refused to renounce his faith before the Roman occupiers. He was beheaded on the hill which became known as Mons Majorum, later Montmartre, from where he walked headless to the north of the city. The place where he fell and was buried became an important religious shrine, the Basilica of Saint Denis, and many French kings are buried there. Clovis the Frank, the first king of the Merovingian dynasty, made the city his capital from 508. As the Frankish domination of Gaul began, there was a gradual immigration by the Franks to Paris and the Parisian Francine dialects were born. Fortification of the Île de la Cité failed to avert sacking by Vikings in 845, but Paris's strategic importance, with its bridges preventing ships from passing, was established by successful defense in the Siege of Paris, for which the then Count of Paris, Otto of France, was elected King of West Francia. From the Capetian dynasty that began with the 987 election of Hugh Capet, Count of Paris and Duke of the Franks, as King of a unified West Francia, Paris gradually became the largest and most prosperous city in France. High and Late Middle Ages to Louis XIV. By the end of the 12th century, Paris had become the political, economic, religious, and cultural capital of France. The Palais de la Cité, the royal residence, was located at the western end of the Île de la Cité. In 1163, during the reign of Louis VII, Maurice de Sully, Bishop of Paris, undertook the construction of the Notre Dame Cathedral at its eastern extremity. After the marshland between the river Seine and its slower dead arm to its north was filled in from around the 10th century, Paris's cultural center began to move to the right bank. In 1137, a new city marketplace replaced the two smaller ones on the Île de la Cité and Place des Grèves. The latter location housed the headquarters of Paris's River Trade Corporation, an organization that later became, unofficially, Paris's first municipal government. In the late 12th century, Philip Augustus extended the Louvre fortress to defend the city against river invasions from the west, gave the city its first walls between 1190 and 1215, rebuilt its bridges to either side of its central island, and paved its main thoroughfares. In 1190, he transformed Paris's former cathedral school into a student-teacher corporation that would become the University of Paris and would draw students from all of Europe. With 200,000 inhabitants in 1328, Paris, then already the capital of France, was the most populous city of Europe. By comparison, London in 1300 had 80,000 inhabitants. During the Hundred Years' War, Paris was occupied by England-friendly Burgundian forces from 1418, before being occupied outright by the English when Henry V of England entered the French capital in 1420. In spite of a 1429 effort by Joan of Arc to liberate the city, it would remain under English occupation until 1436. In the late 16th century French wars of religion, Paris was a stronghold of the Catholic League, the organizers of the 24th of August, 1572, Street. Bartholomew's Day massacre in which thousands of French Protestants were killed. The conflicts ended when pretender to the throne Henry IV, after converting to Catholicism to gain entry to the capital, entered the city in 1594 to claim the crown of France. This king made several improvements to the capital during his reign. He completed the construction of Paris's first uncovered, sidewalk-lined bridge, the Pont Neuf, built a Louvre extension connecting it to the Tuileries Palace, and created the first Paris residential square, the Place Royale, now Place des Vosges. In spite of Henry IV's efforts to improve city circulation, the narrowness of Paris's streets was a contributing factor in his assassination near Les Halles marketplace in 1610. During the 17th century, Cardinal Richelieu, chief minister of Louis XIII, was determined to make Paris the most beautiful city in Europe. He built 5 new bridges, a new chapel for the College of Sorbonne, and a palace for himself, the Palais Cardinal, which he bequeathed to Louis XIII. After Richelieu's death in 1642, it was renamed the Palais Royal. Due to the Parisian uprisings during the French Civil War, Louis XIV moved his court to a new palace, Versailles, in 1682. Although no longer the capital of France, arts and sciences in the city flourished with the Comédie Française, the Academy of Painting, and the French Academy of Sciences. To demonstrate that the city was safe from attack, the king had the city walls demolished and replaced with tree-lined boulevards that would become the Grands Boulevards of today. Other marks of his reign were the Collège des Quaternations, the Place Vendôme, the Place des Victoires, and Les Invalides. 18th and 19th centuries. Paris grew in population from about 400,000 in 1640 to 650,000 in 1780. A new boulevard, the Champs-Élysées, extended the city west to Étoile, while the working-class neighborhood of the Faubourg Saint-Antoine on the eastern side of the city grew more and more crowded with poor migrant workers from other regions of France. Paris was the center of an explosion of philosophic and scientific activity known as the Age of Enlightenment. Diderot and D'Alembert published their encyclopedia in 1751, and the Montgolfier brothers launched the first manned flight in a hot air balloon on the 21st of November, 1783, from the gardens of the Château de la Muette. Paris was the financial capital of continental Europe, the primary European center of book publishing and fashion and the manufacture of fine furniture and luxury goods. In the summer of 1789, Paris became the center stage for the French Revolution. On the 14th of July, a mob seized the arsenal at the Invalides, acquiring thousands of guns, and stormed the Bastille, a symbol of royal authority. The first independent Paris Commune, or City Council, met in the Hôtel de Ville and, on the 15th of July, elected a mayor, the astronomer Jean-Sylvain Bailly. Louis XVI and the royal family were brought to Paris and made prisoners within the Tuileries Palace. In 1793, as the revolution turned more and more radical, the king, queen, and the mayor were guillotined in the Reign of Terror, along with more than 16,000 others throughout France. The property of the aristocracy and the church was nationalized, and the city's churches were closed, sold or demolished. A succession of revolutionary factions ruled Paris until the 9th of November, 1799, when Napoleon Bonaparte seized power as first consul. The population of Paris had dropped by 100,000 during the revolution, but between 1799 and 1815, it surged with 160,000 new residents, reaching 660,000. Napoleon Bonaparte replaced the elected government of Paris with a prefect reporting only to him. He began erecting monuments to military glory, including the Arc de Triomphe, and improved the neglected infrastructure of the city with new fountains, the Canal des Eloques, Père Lachaise Cemetery and the city's first metal bridge, the Pont des Arts. During the Restoration, the bridges and squares of Paris were returned to their pre-revolution names. The July Revolution in 1830 brought a constitutional monarch, Louis-Philippe I, to power. The first railway line to Paris opened in 1837, beginning a new period of massive migration from the provinces to the city. Louis-Philippe was overthrown by a popular uprising in the streets of Paris in 1848. His successor, Napoleon III, alongside the newly appointed prefect of the Seine, Georges Eugen Haussmann, launched a gigantic public works project to build wide new boulevards, a new opera house, a central market, new aqueducts, sewers and parks, including the Bois de Boulogne and Bois de Vincennes. In 1860, Napoleon III also annexed the surrounding towns and created 8 new arrondissements, expanding Paris to its current limits.